Good morning and welcome to the press conference from Tripoli to Brussels, amplifying the voices of refugees in Libya. Ahead of the European Council, we will hear first-hand experiences from refugees and migration activists. We have here today with us David Yambio, co-founder and spokesperson for refugees in Libya, Ella Kanakan from Alarme-phone Tunisia, Mokhtar Nalosu from Alarme-phone Sahara, and the Left MEP Miguel Urban Crespo from Spain. We have interpretation in English, Spanish, and French, and we will take questions from the room and online after the speakers, of course. I will give now the floor to David, please.
Thank you so much for having us here today. But it's a pity that at the same time we are bringing voices from Libya to Brussels. Parliamentarians, diplomats are now sitting somewhere in their comfort, deciding the fate of people who have been systematically silenced and are put to go through different cycles of torture, humiliation, dehumanization, and violations of international and national human rights standards. That does not apply to us. I'm here today in this parliament not only bringing the stories from Libya, but bringing the reality which I had to live on my body, which I had to witness children, women go through. When I left my country, South Sudan, in 2016, due to civil war, I never imagined that one day I will risk my life again for the second time, looking for recognition to cross the Mediterranean, only to be denied, only to be rejected, only to be neglected, only to be imprisoned, only to be exploited, only to be raped, only to be put to forced labor, only to be forcibly conscripted with the complicity of the EU and political approach to migratory impact. Today, the experiences that I have witnessed while in Libya and with my four-time attempt to cross the Mediterranean, I have seen women who were raped. And it is this commission, the people who are here, who raped these people with their politics, with the migration policies that they draw, and we suffer it on our bodies. The people who have died since 2013 to this time in the central Mediterranean, this commission have killed them with the migratory deterrence impact that they are using, the techniques, the mechanisms that they have introduced into engaging with the Libyan authorities is unacceptable and it is deadly. The enslavement which I have witnessed in Libya, the auctioning of people in 2017, in this 21st era, is unacceptable. It is this commission, the people who make these decisions, who are enslaving people on the move, refugees, asylum seekers, and all that comes about with seeking recognition. When I was in Libya last year, in 2022, the 28th of April, I was hiding from the Libyan authorities and from the militias who wanted to silence me and to silence the people who have been constantly silenced, but not anymore because we were already so full of it and we wanted to seek recognition. We wanted to call for our rights to be respected and protected. When I was speaking to this parliament, there was no political will to change the situation in which we are living in. Today, after our protest movement, which was born out of the need to voice out these atrocities, to voice out this human rights violation which is happening in Libya and in Brussels here, we were not listened to. It is the same situation which is happening today. And when I come here to this commission today, I am coming to hold these parliamentarians accountable, because before we hold the Italians for the shipwrecks off the coast of Cutro, we must hold this commission for the migration policies that they are making. Before we go into Greece and call them the shield of Europe, forcing them to drown more than 600 people, we must hold this commission responsible. We are charging this commission with murder, with rape, with enslavement, with torture, and with everything inhuman that comes about. We denounce hypocrisy, we denounce lack of recognition, we denounce all this structural racism. Because the movement and the freedom of movement we experience today, with my 1 year experience in Europe, I am able to fly from Italy, to go to Denmark, to have my dinner there, and to come back and sleep in my room in Italy. Why is this not happening in Niger, in Libya, in Algeria? We need 2 months to cross from one border to another because of these policies that does not allow us to breathe. It is enough. We are full of this. We want recognition. We want inclusion. Once these policies are designed and put in place, we are not there. And from today, we are requesting representation. We are requesting this commission to take our experiences into consideration. We are asking this commission to look at the sufferings that we have gone through and to bear in mind that we do not have to experience it on our body in order for them to take concrete decisions that aligns together with national and international human rights standards, which applies in Europe and beyond Europe. For now, I will pass the word to the next person, and we will be followed by a roundtable talk with different parliamentarians about the situation on Libya and on the central Mediterranean. Thank you.
Thank you, David. I will give the floor to Hela Kanakan from Alarme-phone Tunisia.
Hello, can you hear me? Yeah. So I came here today not to speak about Tunisians, which are also their rights are violated by the EU policies, but to just pass a message from Mohammed, who is one of the leaders of the protest of refugees in Tunisia in front of the UNHCR. And who represents the refugees who are still protesting since 4 months to be evacuated from Tunisia. Mohammed, he shared that we would like to actually answer anyone who says Tunisia is a safe country. We, the refugees protesting in front of the UNHCR Tunis, we who are affected and we who are facing the violence of the state and the violence of the EU we cannot say and we can never say that Tunisia is a safe country. It might maybe be a safe country for tourists coming from the global north. We, refugees and asylum seekers, we struggle for every right, for every basic need. The right to education, the right to healthcare, the right to enter, the right to leave, even our cities. We struggle to walk in the streets because if we walk in the streets and we are black, we are constantly attacked, whether by the citizens or by the police. Once we enter Tunisia, whether from the Libyan borders or the Algerian borders, we are detained and then pushed back again. When we are detained, we are tortured. And then when we go back to Algeria, we are again, some of us are again detained and are again tortured, and then we try to cross again and again and again. When we come from Libya, it is exactly the same thing that is happening to us. When we try to ask for evacuation, there is no response. But when we take boats, it's whether we face the violence by the Tunisian coast guards, which are beating us, trying to make the boats drown, or we go back to Tunisia if we are alive. When we go back to Tunisia, we are whether criminalized for crossing or we go to the streets. We have been in the streets since 4 months and nothing has changed for us. This is not the first protest, this is my words, this is not the first protest in Tunis from refugees. The protests have been in 2011, 2012, 2013, 2018, 2019, 2022 and 2023, and nothing has ever changed. The people that have been protesting last year in 2022, half of them, we have no idea where they are. No idea. They are missing. They are not in the shelters anymore. They asked for evacuation. There was no evacuation, of course, because UNHCR is protecting EU borders and not protecting the refugees. And now half of the people who were in the shelter, we have no idea where they are. And this is what will also happen in 2023 and in the next years, as long as we are still in the same, facing the same systematic violence by the EU and people having no idea about what Tunisia means, having no idea about what is reality, or even having an idea what reality is, because they are also creating this reality in Tunisia by their economic and by by their economic agreements in African countries. So they know what the situation is, but they are completely silent and chose to be silent. And as David said, they have to be accountable. We cannot not only accountable for the migration policies, but also for everything that they have been doing for years and years and years, whether from colonialism, whether from neocolonialism, and so on. That's it.
Thank you, Hela. Mokhtar Nalosu from Alarme-phone Sahara now. S'il te plaît, Mokhtar.
Merci.
Thank you. Today, I would like to talk about the way people are pushed back between Algeria and Niger. This is a violation of rights. And why do I say this? This is because people are caught in the streets, in their houses, within a 15-kilometer perimeter of the border. They are left in the heat. You have pregnant women, you have old people, children, who are just kept over there in the heat, and then they are forced to flee at gunpoint. There are a number of people who have disappeared in the desert. And when they reach Samarkand, which is the first village in Niger near the border, it's a small village. It's a village that now has over 7,000 people there, and the population has grown from about 600 to 7,000 because of people being pushed back from the borders. People there are suffering in the heat, and this is something that the town is unable to deal with, was never built for. This is a violation of fundamental human rights, and the parliament needs to take action. These are human beings. These are not people who can be raped, who can be sacrificed. They are brave people from Africa. These are people who just have gone to a neighboring country to find something to eat. So we cannot just leave them to their own devices. Furthermore, if they return to Niger, over there they are criminalized as well by the existing laws because they have tried to flee. And in a way, these people are now often blocked in certain border towns, and they're just desperately trying to find something to eat. So as you can see, all of this has become a kind of business, and all of this stems from migratory policy. And we have to find a solution for this. Secondly, when we're talking about refugees and asylum seekers, when they reach Gadez. Now, Gadez is a very important town in the north of Niger. And the name, in fact, of the town means hospitality. And it's a crossing point between North and West Africa. But now it's just something that is a blockage point. It's a bottleneck for people who are trying to cross these borders. And this is not all right. This is not normal. You have sub-Saharan Africans and Africans from the north who used to meet here, but now this town has a completely different nature. There is nonetheless a law that allows people to move freely within this entire region, and Niger is part of this agreement, but this freedom of movement is clearly not guaranteed. You also have thousands of people who are in Agadez who are stuck there. For 5 or 6 years now, they have been stuck there. And they have not even been recognized as refugees. They are still asylum seekers. They are blocked 15 kilometers from Agadez. And in a way, the security forces have kept them there to try and break their spirit, to thinking that they will not advance, they will not want to go ahead. So the parliament now needs to intervene and do something so that they can get official status and they can actually move to the countries they wish to go to. Thank you.
The floor to the left MEP, Miguel Urban Crespo from Anticapitalistas, Spain.
Lo primero, muchas gracias.
First of all, I would like to thank you. To be honest, I am invited here. The real protagonists are those who are sitting here who spoke before me. I would simply like to make a few comments. First of all, Alarme-phone has spent over 24 hours in the doors of the European Union reading precisely the alarm messages. Messages that were silenced and no one knew in the European Union, but that were the cause of thousands of deaths and that continue to make of the Mediterranean a common fuss. Messages that come from the different seas that then create over 700 deaths. This is the consequence of the Fortress Europe's policies. The same norms that are precisely the different things that my colleague said before. It is a constant, systematic violation of human rights, and this is a part of the European policies and not the exception. This is systematic, and it is a very important element. It's not something we're trying to mitigate or change. No. We're trying to reinforce it, and we need to raise awareness about this. We need to raise awareness that the new migration pact is reinforcing racist and xenophobic migration policies from the Europe fortress, and what are going to create more suffering, more pain, more human rights violations. And this is being approved with a majority of the MEPs of this parliament. And I am truly ashamed to be an MEP of this parliament that can approve migration policies that have been approved already and are going to be approved with this new migration pact. I can only hope that sooner rather than later, all of the people who are voting in favor of these policies end up in a international tribunal for crimes against humanity, because it's what is really we're doing with migration policies in the European Union. I would like to finish saying that precisely this weekend is the 1-year anniversary of the 24J in Melilla that was the biggest killing. It's killing, that's the word. Killing of people in a terrestrial frontier of the European Union by the police forces from Morocco and from the Spanish police forces. And all of these crimes are still not being judged. The only people that have been judged are the migrants. No one else has been punished. The migrants are being blamed for these killings that happened in Melilla. I think this is crucial, because without justice, everything goes unpunished. And with impunity, we're going to continue creating these policies that create massive graves that are being managed by a truly criminal organization that is Frontex. I would simply like to thank you for being here. Thank you to Alarme-phone for the work they're doing and for the actions they're carrying out in front of the, once again, passivity or non-reaction of the Brussels, of the European institutions, saying that our policies are leaving a lot of death. Thank you.
We will go first in the room and then online. If you are online and you want to ask anything, please raise your hand. Do we have any questions in the room? Yes, please.
Good morning, Vincenzo Genovese from Euronews. Thank you very much for this press briefing. I have a question for Madame Kanakane about the situation in Tunisia. Where are the majority of people, of refugees that are protesting from which countries? And then they are asking for evacuation to other countries, I guess, to safe countries. But I don't understand if they are available also to go back to their countries of origin, or they are demanding to be evacuated into the EU or somewhere else. And then, if I may, other question for Mr. Yambio and Mr. Nalosso, as you're in contact, I guess, with many people from sub-Saharan African countries. It seems to me that the European Union, the Commission, but also the member states, like Italian government, for example, are sending clear messages to people to not even leave from their countries of origin. So my question is, are the people aware of these messages and they choose to leave because they have no other choice? Or are these messages not actually arriving in sub-Saharan African countries? Thank you very much.
I start. So I don't recall the nationalities first of all, and I don't think it is very important. What I know is that they are refugees and asylum seekers, and that they want to be evacuated to safe countries. And as I think this answers as well the second question, which is, as refugees and asylum seekers, I'm not a legal expert, but I know that it's illegal that they are brought back to their countries of origin because their lives are at risk, at high risk. So I think these two small sentences answer very well.
David?
For your question, I think regarding the message, I will give you, and I have already given you an example why I had to leave my country because of the civil war. I will give you the nearest example next to the Europeans. The Ukrainians, the circumstance which they are in today. Do you think if they wanted to go to Asia and they are told not to come because they will be rejected at the border, will they still choose to stay under the raging war in Ukraine? They will try to leave the country at any cost. It is the same situation happening now in Sudan when the war broke out on the 15th of April. Until now, there is no solidarity that has been shown to the people of Sudan. If you look at the border in Chad, thousands of people, children, women who are starved, all these are recorded, provided, broadcasted by journalists, by UN, by these IOM agencies, that I am today even standing against their inability to bring the voices of these people to the table of the European Commission, to the parliamentarians who are able to take decisions. If you look at the border where people are queuing to access the entry to Egypt, they are being denied. The same to Ethiopia, the same to South Sudan. Why is there no recognition? This message cannot define the right to life when you are in risk. This message is nothing to people, no matter how they continue to send it. It will never have an effect so long as there is war in our countries of origin. If they want to send a clear message, we want the EU to provide and to advocate for peace in our countries of origin. I never wanted to come here, but my country has been ravaged by war, and we have been forced to fight wars when I was only 12 years old, by weapons that come from the West. And when I mention West, it is all these European countries. It is the Americas. We should stop being hypocrites, and we should advocate for a global recognition. And this is what we want. We will gain it at any cost.
Mokhtar, tu peux répondre, s'il vous plaît?
Oui.
Thank you. Yes, the Africans have received the message. And sometimes, what are these messages that reach them? For example, people who are fleeing war. What sort of message are you going to give them that will make them stay back? Because they know if they stay back, they're going to die. So if you tell someone in Ukraine, don't come, well, it's the same thing, really. You have to share resources at some point in time. And sometimes there are some people who leave their country because they have issues with their parents. Some leave because they are in poverty. I met a migrant who told me, I prefer dying in the desert rather than looking at my mother crying because of the poverty that we live in. So this is the situation. Nothing is going to really persuade them to stay back. Irrespective of what the messages are sent out, they are going to come.
Questions in the room. I will go online. I see Michelangelo. Please press the speaker's button and introduce yourself. see Michelangelo Severnini, who raised his hand. You can press the speaker's button, please.
Yes, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, so okay. Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, it's perfect. We hear you and we see you now.
Yes, so Michelangelo Severnini from the Italian magazine L'Antidiplomatico. I would like to ask Mr. Yambio why is that in the voices and stories he tells there are never those of the migrants asking, indeed begging, to go home from Libya. The number of refugees in Libya is only a small part of the entire number of migrants stranded in the Tripoli area, and those should be evacuated to Europe right now, all of them through flights. We all agree upon that. However, the majority of the stranded migrants are not there in Libya because they are fleeing the war, but because they have been deceived by African mafias who promised a quick passage to Europe, while after years they are still on the ground in the Tripoli area in a state of slavery and subjected to torture for extortion. Therefore, these people are asking to be freed and brought home. I have collected hundreds of messages with these kinds of requests over the last 5 years. They are all online, and some of them are contained in the movie L'Urlo, The Scream, which I made and which was censored in Italy. So, Mr. Yambio, why are these voices not heard in your words?
Michelangelo, first, I'm happy that you're here because I don't know where he is. The documentary that you produced, which was misleading about the people. I have lived in Libya for 4 years. The people who come from Libya, mostly Sudanese, mostly Eritreans, mostly Somalis, mostly from West Africa who are fleeing poverty. Tell me, who among them want to go back? This brings me to the point where IOM is forcing people, coming and making agreement with the Libyan authority to lock people inside detention center so they can go back to their countries of origin. And at this point, I mentioned UNHCR because they have been watching us passively without bringing our voice to the international community so they can advocate, so they can offer resettlement thoughts to the people that needs to live a life. No one in Libya wants to go. The people who have come to Libya are seeking places where they can find access to educate themselves, to have access to food. Libya today is still part of Africa, and it is one of the richest countries that is still able to provide provision to the people that needs to nourish their family. No one wants to leave Libya, but the moment the EU creates a mafia regime that kills without a touch, the moment EU decides to kill people in Libya and beyond and in the Sahara region, people find it unacceptable to leave. When you look at the people, ask them, why do they want to go back? Who is telling them to go back? Why did they leave their country? And why would they choose to go home without nothing? To go home desperately, to go home while choosing to only socialize themselves. The documentary you provided, we have been denouncing it, and we today here denounce it because the voices you produced with our voice, with our stories, misleading and providing to the Italian media is misleading. We denounce that. People like you are the one killing us.
Are there any other questions online? I don't see any other journalists who raised their hands. If there are no questions, I will wrap it up here. Thanks a lot to the participants, to the journalists, and to the interpreters, and do not hesitate to get in touch if you need any further information. Thank you.